Hey Internet, Adrian here for Digital Dojos with a video that I should have definitely done 2 months ago for it to make more sense, but nonetheless, here we are with my tech predictions of 2023. I want to give some insight into the world of tech as I see it unfolding in the 9+ months to come, whatever it may be. Revisit this at the end of the year, see where I was wrong, see where I was right, and then hand off my predictions for the year to come again in 2024. For those of you who don't know, my name is Adrian. I have been in the world of technology and covering it for the last nearly 2 decades. I currently run an outsourced IT company that caters to many of the tech startup scene and something that I just in general am exposed to on a day-to-day outside of my previous gigs and businesses. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump right into my predictions. I think the first one is the easiest one. It's one that, if you haven't heard of it already, I'm sure you will in the year 2023. That is the race toward the progression of and the craze around AI, or artificial intelligence. A lot of companies are going to get into AI at some level this year, maybe in certain aspects you didn't even expect, right? There's going to be apps and businesses, not even in the tech scene, that adopt AI at some level. You're going to see it in the gaming industry. You're going to see it in some of your favorite apps that you may use. Some things like Notion that have recently got it in their beta features. Obviously, you're going to see the more mainstream acknowledgement and use cases of it in things like ChatGPT being integrated in some aspects to things like Bing Search with Microsoft. Google is going to certainly have to revamp and revise and come out with their own solution out there. You're just going to see AI everywhere. You're going to see a lot of businesses pivot towards AI. You're going to see a lot of startups around it in 2023. You're going to see entrepreneurs who you follow try to get into the space because a lot of people tend to gravitate towards the easy money. It's going to be the buzzword of 2023 in the tech scene, and there's just all these eyeballs on it right now, right? All the people who are in that Web3 crypto boom and craze, I'm sure you're going to see a lot of those people switch over to the world of AI, and in some aspects for good reason, right? All this craziness, all this hype around AI, which is something as a whole that's been around forever, right? Artificial intelligence and the idea of it has always been a thing. The reason we're seeing more and more prevalence in 2023 is because the actual progression and evolution of some of its major tools and use cases, right? We're at this kind of cutting edge moment where we're seeing a lot of those practical use cases manifest. Automations, natural language conversion. And this is the reason why it's at the perfect kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say the precipice, but like a perfect moment in opportunity, because consumers are seeing the practical end use cases that they can benefit from, and in turn businesses are seeing and people are seeing the business benefits and where they can make money off of it, right? When you have those two things at a perfect timing, like, it's just a recipe for a storm. And in this case, AI does have a lot of practical use cases. When I talk about things like natural language conversion, the idea that you can now go into these chat bots and ask it really sophisticated questions or more complex, nuanced questions, and it can respond to you is one aspect of like a digital assistant. But taking that further and then telling things to generate a program for you or generate a website for you based on your parameters, to create an image in the style of some sort of Baroque painting in a specific time frame, or making a song in the style of a specific genre or artist, and having that generate that for you without having to know how to use things like Fruit Loops or Photoshop or Adobe Premiere. That's the reason why AI is going to be so popular, right? It takes a lot of the guesswork and automates it, and is only going to get better, right? That's the whole idea behind these kind of learning and data models, is that AI is only going to improve, and it's improving at a rate that's only going to be exponential, right? There's this very popular statistic that talks about the rate of adoption for a lot of major technologies, and AI has certainly blown past those expectations in terms of widespread adoption in like the 2-month category, reaching I think like 100 billion plus people. So again, AI year of 2023, a lot of tech is going to be revolving around it. No surprise there. Moving on to another prediction of mine, the short form content war. We saw a lot of this talk around the live streaming platforms back in the day, where Twitch and Mixer and YouTube. And I think we're going to see that same kind of version for short form content. We have platforms like TikTok, Instagram and Facebook, YouTube Shorts, Twitter now, all offering some monetization strategy for their content, in particular short form content. You're seeing platforms like Instagram and obviously TikTok and all these other ones geared towards feature sets that apply to their short form content creators. because if you're offering another ad revenue split or monetization strategy around it, it's going to draw more viewers, and you're trying to make your platform more enticing. So you're seeing these revenue splits be generated by platforms like YouTube to appeal and attract new users to their platform. And I think you're going to go as far as seeing in 2023 exclusive creators to specific platforms, the same way we saw exclusive streamers to those platforms. Short form content isn't going anywhere. It's only getting more and more popular. Data has only shown that. And I think 2023, we're going to see only a bigger rise in that, as well as a lot of these companies doubling down in that space to get people to come to their platform, if not get bigger creators to be exclusive to their platform, the same way they've done for everything else. As a kind of sub prediction off of that in the gaming industry, I will argue that as a whole, 2023 is going to be a solid year all around for gaming. It's going to be one of those golden years for gaming, I'd argue, because you're seeing a lot of these titles that were delayed in 2019, 2020, 21, 22 start to take shape and form and release in 2023. I mean, we've already gotten releases in late 2022, like Elden Ring. We're getting releases like Hogwarts Legacy. We're only going to see more and more titles that are already projected and announced to drop in 2023, not to mention like the kind of hidden gems that will drop from the indie scene. I think 2023 is primed for like the perfect year to get just a really ton of great gaming releases and a lot of Game of the Year contenders. All right, moving into smartphone predictions. I think this is a very common one. A lot of people like to predict because there's so many ways you can kind of go with smartphones. I would argue you're going to get the crazy features. You're going to get the crazy cameras, the crazy bendable screens from the likes of Samsung, Apple, so on and so forth. But I would argue what we're going to see a shift in 2023 onwards is the simplification of the lineup. I don't mean the simplification in terms of features. I mean, do you remember when the iPhone was just the iPhone and this was the model that you got? There was no Plus, there was no Pro, there was no bigger or smaller version. It was just the iPhone. Now, I think we're still a long ways away from a singular phone being the flagship phone again. But I would argue rather than seeing these 3, 4, 5 different models, we get back to a place of more of a 2, maybe 3 sort of model, big size, small size sort of deal. I know we've seen Apple kind of trend this way in the past, and then they've gone as crazy as going multiple models. And I understand it, right? You want to develop phones that are flagship phones. You want to develop mid-range phones, more affordable phones for certain markets and industries. Like it's a business tactic at the end of the day. But I think as this technology gets better, it gets easier to mass produce. It gets easier to be more widespread. When technology is new and cutting edge, whether it's like specific OLED screens or camera lenses or so on and so forth, it's harder to justify, putting all of that into a flagship phone or the lower end phones because of the cost. But I think as a lot of that tech develops, which we've seen smartphone tech only continue to rapidly develop, you have this perfect sweet spot of like a mid-range phone that can be, low, sub 1,000 or even obviously cheaper than that, while still appealing to the masses and kind of giving the everyman phone, right? So more of these singular focus lineups and model releases, I think we'll see some of that start to develop in 2023. All right, moving into the world of tech as a whole. I'm a little biased here as somebody who runs a company, has employees, has a team that comes into office. This one is more around the world of work in the tech industry. I think that the hybrid workforce is here to stay in 2023, and we're only going to see more kind of contentions around that whole idea of a world of work in the world of tech. Tech has always specifically been known for like this adoption of either kind of, remote capabilities, as well as also the opposite, where I think when you originally envisioned startups back in the day pre-pandemic, they were doing everything they could to retain and attract talent. They were making these offices as not, it was very startup-y bubble stuff. You saw offices like Facebook and Google and Pinterest having everything from barbershops, cafeterias, personal chefs for their employees and whatnot. It was a different world in the startup industry when it came to their offices and the appeal to get their employees not just to want to work there, but to stay there and get them to stay there longer, right? Because it benefits the business. And then you saw this turn of events during the pandemic where we saw this huge shift in remote work. And obviously, like people also loving that and not wanting to return to this kind of in-office model. Here's a hard thing. Right now, we're in this tough space with the tech industry, kind of post-pandemic. The market where it currently is at, we're seeing a lot of layoffs, especially in the tech sector. Part of that is due to overhiring and the leveraging of debt for these tech companies and startups, which In turn, the employees have to pay the price, unfortunately. That's why you're seeing a lot of these reduction in forces, these layoffs, so on and so forth. And it's the nature of Silicon Valley where when these big tech startups tend to do something, the ripple effect occurs. When Twitter shut its offices years ago during the pandemic to go fully remote, a lot of the other major companies followed suit. It was a domino effect. Now, fast forward to where Twitter is at today, which you could argue is worse than it was back then, and under new management, there's going to be a shift in that culture. And whether it's for the better or worse, only time will tell. But again, it's going to be a domino effect in reverse. As a lot of these companies force in-office mandates or force only remote mandates, it's going to kind of determine where the needle leads. I personally am of the opinion that I think hybrid is here to stay. I would argue we're not going back to a world that's fully in office like it was before. Like that ship to me has sailed because of what the pandemic proved. Not just the tech industry and sector could do some remote infrastructure work, but other industries as well had capabilities to at least offer some remote capabilities throughout their roles and functions. I would argue at the same time, we're not going to a world that's fully remote either. I think businesses just don't fully allow that at this time. And obviously there's many, many industries that require in-office presence and service industries and other things where it makes sense to have people in office to perform their jobs and duties and functions. But that middle ground is the world of hybrid remote / in-office work, whether you're going in office twice a week, you're being remote once a week, whatever. I think we are seeing more and more of that, and I think that's here to stay. I think there's going to be a lot of conversation around that in 2023 because we're in this kind of post-pandemic phase, and we're seeing the ripple effects of what was and what will be. And in my opinion, is that is going to be the world of hybrid work going forward. All right, moving into my last point and prediction here for the world of technology in 2023. The foundational unification of the smart home and the smart tech industry. I'm a big fan of smart tech. I have all sorts of smart lights, fancy cameras, random smart home automations and gadgets and gizmos. But here's the thing. The more and more brands, the more smart home tech there is, the more ecosystems there are. The irony is that it becomes less and less smart. When I have to have, right now, a home assistant, so a little Raspberry Pi telling my motion sensor when I open my office and studio door to turn on this brand of lights and that brand of lights and all that to shut off when I walk away, that's, defeating the purposes of it being smart. When I'm spending more time on my automation and my setup of things, it defeats the purpose of this whole smart home industry, right? And I think we're starting to see and get the grasp of what this could be in the world to come because of standards and compliances like Matter and Thread that are going to make a lot of these brands and devices able to communicate with each other regardless of ecosystem. Think of it right now, when you want to get into this kind of smart home tech ecosystem, a lot of the conversation starts at what ecosystem do you want to be in? Do you want to be on the Amazon side? Do you want to use Google's Home Assistant? Do you want to use Apple's HomeKit and Siri and all that fun stuff? And that kind of determines where you land. And it can be predicated on which device you have or so on and so forth. And that decision then locks you into a suite of products that are only compatible with XY ecosystem. Now, ideally, there are certain products that are compatible with each of those, but we're starting to see the foundation and groundwork of things like Matter and Thread, these open standards and compliances where a lot of these major companies, Philips Hue, Govee, Nanoleaf, so on and so forth, are committing to producing these products that support that. Apple's HomePod is another one that supports that. Making these devices being able to support this open communication with a bunch of different products that allow your hub to not be, a hub just for this one product, but allow your lights to talk to X lights and X product and X sensor without having to worry about all that stuff. We're going to see the groundwork of those products be released in 2023, which only lays the foundation for that to ripple down 2024, 25, and so on and so forth. Where hopefully, ideally, there's a world where you don't need something like a Home Assistant to have whatever products you have in your home work with whatever assistant you want to use, regardless of the platform you're on. That's the ideal future of the smart home tech industry. So I think we see a ton of products in 2023 get released with this Matter Thread support, and we start to see what that potentially could look like in the years to come. So it's a little bit of a longer end prediction, but I'll take it if it's for the greater good. All right, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up my predictions for the world of 2023 and technology in general. So leave your thoughts, controversial or not, in the comments down below. I welcome you to throw your own opinions and your predictions for the world of tech in 2023. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. Consider subscribing for more content. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching.